Disclaimer. This story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. The air between us felt heavier than silence. She stood by the doorway, one hand on the frame, the other playing with the hem of her sleeve like she was fighting a thought she shouldn't say out loud. The hallway light cast a warm shadow across her face, softening the sharp edges of her uncertainty. I could still smell the faint trace of her perfume. Not strong, just familiar. Like something that once meant safety but now burned slow and dangerous. I wasn't supposed to be here. Not at this hour, not this close. We had said we'd keep things simple. A promise that already felt like a lie. Every glance since then had been a quiet betrayal. Every smile an invitation neither of us had the courage to name. Then she looked at me. Really looked. The kind of look that unravels everything you've tried to keep in check. Her voice dropped to a whisper, low and careful. I don't usually invite. The words hung between us, trembling with meaning, unfinished yet already understood. Before I could reply, she turned, her fingers brushing mine. Light, fleeting, electric. And then, the sound, the soft click of the door closing behind me. The world outside vanished, leaving only the hum of my pulse and the warmth of her presence. No one said another word. The silence was louder than anything. Somewhere in that stillness, between what was right and what we wanted, something shifted. Something we could never take back. That's how it began. Not with a kiss, not even a confession. Just a whisper, and a door that closed too slowly. The door's soft thud still echoed in my chest like a heartbeat that wasn't mine. The air between us thickened. Not from words, but from everything we were too afraid to say. She turned slowly, her hair catching the golden light from the lamp behind her, framing her face like something fragile yet unshakably strong. I tried to speak, but my voice caught. There was something about the way she looked at me, like she already knew what I was going to say, and it scared her as much as it scared me. She took a small step closer. Not enough to close the space, but enough to make every inch of that distance feel deliberate. You don't have to stay, she said softly, but her eyes betrayed her words. They lingered, searching mine, asking a question she didn't dare voice. I swallowed, my throat tight. Then tell me to go. I managed, my voice rougher than I intended. She didn't. Instead, her gaze fell to my hands, then back up. A flicker of hesitation, of quiet surrender. I could feel the hum of tension, like a string pulled to the point of breaking. The kind of silence that doesn't demand words, it demands truth. I shouldn't have called you, she whispered almost to herself. Then why did you? Her breath trembled. She looked away, then back, and for a moment, I saw it, the crack in her calm. Because you make it hard to forget what I've been trying to. That confession hit like a spark in the dark. The room suddenly felt smaller, the air warmer. My pulse was everywhere. In my throat, my hands, my chest. I took a half step forward, not to touch her, but to be near enough that I could feel her breath when she exhaled. Neither of us moved. The space between us was a storm. Quiet, waiting, dangerous. Her lips parted slightly, as if she was about to say something, then didn't. We stood there, suspended between the safety of distance and the gravity of what we both knew was coming. And for one unbearable moment, the world stopped. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The silence between us stretched, fragile as glass. One wrong word, and everything we were pretending not to feel would shatter. She turned away first, running a hand through her hair like she needed to anchor herself to something real. I shouldn't be doing this, she murmured half to herself. The edge in her voice wasn't anger. It was fear, the kind that comes from wanting something you know you can't have. I watched her move toward the window. The city lights spilled in soft reflections across her face, outlining the quiet storm in her expression. Her fingers toyed with the curtain cord, nervous, distracted. You don't understand, she said after a beat. I've already hurt someone before. I don't want to do it again. Her confession hit deep, and I felt my chest tighten. You think I don't know what that's like? I stepped closer, slow, careful, like approaching something sacred. trying to do the right thing, while every part of you is screaming not to? She turned then, meeting my eyes. There it was, the pull neither of us could deny. A quiet ache that filled the air between us. I could see her fighting it, trying to steady her breathing, her fingers clutching the edge of the windowsill like it could save her from herself. I reached out not to touch her, but to bridge the space. My hand hovered near hers, close enough that the warmth of her skin grazed mine. That tiny distance that almost felt louder than any touch could have. For a second, she didn't move. Then her pinky brushed against mine. A whisper of contact, light as air, yet enough to send a tremor through me. Her breath caught, and her eyes flickered down to where our hands almost met. And just when it felt like the moment might tip into something neither of us could undo, she pulled back. Too fast, like the air had burned her. "Don't," she whispered, voice trembling. "If you touch me right now, I won't stop." The words hung heavy between us. Neither of us dared breathe. Outside, a car passed, the sound distant, hollow. Inside, everything else felt unbearably alive. The room felt smaller now, like the air itself had chosen sides. Every heartbeat, every breath, seemed to echo too loudly. She still stood near the window, but something in her posture had changed. Less guarded, more surrendered, as if fighting the inevitable had worn her down. I took a slow step closer. She didn't move away this time. The city light danced across her face, catching the shimmer of her lashes, the tremor of her lips. She wasn't looking at me. Not fully, but I could feel her awareness like heat against my skin. "You always do this," she whispered, her voice breaking slightly. "Do what? Make me forget I'm supposed to be stronger than this." The words struck something deep. My chest tightened, and before I could think, I was close enough to see the reflection of my own uncertainty in her eyes. There was no pretending anymore, no excuses left to hide behind. Her fingers were trembling, resting against the edge of the window pane. I reached up slowly, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. My hand hovered there, close enough that I could feel her breath hitch, but I didn't touch her. Not yet. Her eyes lifted to mine, and everything stopped moving. The space between us wasn't empty anymore. It pulsed with everything we tried to bury. "I can't keep pretending," she said, the words barely audible. "Then don't," I replied. Something in her broke then, not a weakness but a release. Her breath came shallow, her voice soft and raw. "You don't understand. Wanting you hurts." "I do," I said quietly, "because I feel it too." The silence that followed was unbearable, the kind that shakes you from the inside out. My hand finally found her cheek, slow, hesitant, reverent. Her eyes fluttered closed at the touch, and for one suspended heartbeat, the world dissolved into that single connection. Then she leaned forward, not enough to close the distance, but enough to erase the line between almost and never. And just before the moment could break, before it became something neither of us could take back, she whispered, "Don't say anything, just stay." The world held its breath. The first raindrop tapped against the window like a whisper from the night. Then another. Then dozens more, soft, rhythmic, hypnotic. The city outside blurred into a wash of silver and amber light. Inside, the air was still, but charged, humming with everything they'd refused to admit for too long. She turned toward him, the faint glow from the lamp painting gold across her skin. Her eyes searched his, asking a question neither dared voice. For once, there was no need to hide, no reason left to resist. He stepped closer, and this time she didn't move away. Her breath caught, trembling in the tiny space between them. "You should go," she said, but her voice betrayed her, soft, almost pleading. "I can't," he whispered. "Not tonight." The world seemed to exhale. She closed her eyes, and his hand found hers. Fingers lacing gently, not claiming, just holding. The simple contact felt like surrender. Her pulse fluttered beneath his thumb, her skin warm and real and alive. For a long time they didn't speak. The rain filled the silence, its rhythm syncing with the slow rise and fall of their breaths. Then she looked up, her lips parting as if to say something. But he was already there, close enough that her next breath melted into his. It wasn't a kiss. Not yet. Just the kind of nearness that feels like gravity. Her forehead rested against his, her hand brushing against his chest as if testing whether he was really there. His fingertips traced the line of her jaw, slow, reverent, memorizing. "You feel it too," she whispered. He nodded, barely. "I always have." And then, finally, all the walls between them fell. Her body leaned into his, not in hunger, but in recognition. The kind of closeness that quiets everything else. The soft fabric of her sweater brushed against him, her breath warm against his neck. The space filled with small, unspoken things. Sighs, tremors, heartbeats. They moved without thought, guided by everything they hadn't said. Her hands found the back of his neck, his breath tangled in her hair. The world outside was just rain and distant thunder. Inside, it was warmth and quiet and release. When his lips finally touched hers, it wasn't fire. It was gravity. Slow, certain. The kind of connection that pulls you apart just to put you back together again. Their bodies spoke the words they'd never dared to speak. The air between them pulsed with tenderness, restraint, and the ache of finally letting go. It wasn't wild, it was inevitable. The kind of moment that feels both endless and fleeting, like the night itself was holding its breath for them. And when the rain softened, so did they, holding, not claiming. Breathing, not speaking. Two hearts tangled in quiet surrender. Outside, dawn waited patiently. Inside, time had already stopped. Morning came quietly. Pale light slipping through half-closed blinds, the kind that makes everything look softer, quieter, harder to explain. The rain had stopped, leaving behind the scent of wet pavement and something unspoken still hanging in the air. She stirred first, her head resting against the edge of his shoulder. Eyes opening slowly as if waking up inside a dream she wasn't sure she wanted to end. For a moment she didn't move, she just listened. To the hum of the heater, to his slow, even breathing, to the quiet ache in her chest that whispered this means something. When she finally sat up, the silence felt heavier. He was awake, eyes open, staring at the ceiling like it might hold answers. Neither of them said a word. Words, after all, were what they'd been avoiding for so long. Finally, she spoke. A whisper, raw and uncertain. "What happens now?" He turned to her, eyes tired but gentle. "I don't know." Her fingers traced the edge of the blanket. The fabric wrinkled from where their worlds had come undone. "We shouldn't have," she started, but stopped herself. The truth was, she didn't regret it. That was what scared her most. He sat up slowly, running a hand through his hair. "Maybe we were always going to end up here," he said quietly. "We just kept pretending we wouldn't." The words lingered like morning fog. Visible, heavy, impossible to hold. Then came the sound. A soft knock at the door. Both froze. A heartbeat later, another knock. She looked at him, panic flickering behind her calm. "It's too early," she whispered. He stood, glancing toward the window. "Do you want me to?" Before he could finish, the knocking stopped. Silence again. Only now it wasn't peaceful. It was filled with the echo of everything that couldn't be said aloud. She looked at him, really looked, and there was something new in her eyes. Not regret, not relief, just truth. "Last night didn't fix anything," she said, "but it changed everything." He nodded, unable to argue. Outside, the light grew brighter, spilling over the edges of their stillness. Soft, merciless, real. And in that fragile morning quiet, two people sat side by side, knowing that the hardest part hadn't been giving in. It was what came after. The apartment was quiet now, the storm long gone, leaving behind a sky brushed with soft pinks and golds. They sat side by side on the couch, shoulders barely touching, but the space between them no longer felt empty. It hummed with a new understanding, fragile, honest, and entirely theirs. She rested her head on his shoulder, and he let it stay there, careful, deliberate, as if by holding her close he could slow the world down. Their fingers twined naturally, a silent agreement that words were unnecessary. Outside, the city stirred, but inside, time seemed to fold around them, bending toward warmth and peace. "I never thought it would be like this," she whispered, voice soft, carrying both awe and relief. "Neither did I," he admitted, brushing a strand of hair from her face. His thumb lingered on her cheek, tracing the gentle curve like memorizing a map. "But I'm glad it is." For a long moment, they simply sat, foreheads brushing lightly, breaths mingling, hearts synchronizing without a single declaration. There was no grand confession, no dramatic gesture, just the quiet, weightless certainty of two people who had risked everything and found each other in the stillness. She smiled faintly, almost imperceptibly. "We'll figure it out," she said, not as a promise, but as a recognition that whatever came next, they would face it together. He kissed the top of her forehead, slow, tender, the kind of gesture that spoke volumes without saying a word. "We already have," he murmured. The sunlight grew stronger, spilling across the room, catching the glint in her eyes. They didn't need more. The moment was enough, fragile, fleeting, perfect. Outside, life carried on. But here, they had found their own quiet eternity. Even if the world demanded they leave, even if they were forced apart tomorrow, this moment would remain. A soft echo of warmth, a memory lingering like perfume, impossible to erase. And as they sat together, fingers entwined and hearts choosing peace, it felt like the universe had paused. Long enough for two people to finally breathe together.